Another good morning to you. Pretty lights as usual. So, let's talk about something that hopefully will give you some motivation to try out. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be programming really. It has really nothing to do with it, but hopefully, well, since I am mostly talking about programming in these little videos of mine, for the intents and purposes, let's assume that I'm talking about programming, just for the sake of being consistent. So, what I wanted to talk to you about is hard work versus talent, or the idea that talent is something that factors into doing something. Now, to give you a bit of background, one of the main, I started programming and decided to try and become a programmer roughly at, I think I was 26-ish, something like that, which is by my, for me feels fairly, that feels fairly old, because there are some kids, I actually have colleagues who have been doing this at, well, I wouldn't say a professional level necessarily, but they have been doing these things since they were 12, teenagers virtually. And the reason why I didn't start earlier, because I had the interest. I got my first computer when I was 10. The fundamental reason was that I was convinced, because when I first tried to program, it was very difficult and I didn't really understand it and all that stuff. And I got it into my head as I was growing up that I wasn't very smart. And some of you may still think that I'm not very smart, and hey, that's okay. I'm not claiming to be especially smart, but that's kind of where this is all heading. So here I am, trying to do programming, and because I don't get it initially, I'm not immediately good at it, I assume that it's something that is very difficult, and I believe that I'm simply not smart enough to do it. So I put it aside, because there are things that are more accessible to me and easier to do, and I kind of lose my way. And for many, many years, I walked around without knowing what I wanted to do, until I finally get back to trying it again. Now, not age 10 to 11 or something like that, but rather at age 26. And I'm not gonna lie, at first it is a little bit difficult, and slowly but surely I do more exercises, I go online and I do Codecademy stuff. I've been tipping in some videos about that, and finally I start to see a pattern in all of this. Things start to fall into place. I start to understand how programming works, and I realize how wrong I've been. I'm not saying I didn't get to a point where I felt, oh yeah, shit, I'm pretty good at this. Never got there. But I did understand how these things worked. So now the next thing hits me, the next anxiety, if you will. Because now I no longer am afraid that I don't have what it takes to even understand this, because I've proven that I understand. At least a little bit. Just a little bit. So now I want to make this into a career. So anxiety number 2 gets in my way, where I'm starting to compare myself to people who are so much better than me. And I always do that. I've been doing it since forever. I forget, and so many people I think do, because you and me and everybody else who's trying to do something, we always have our own role models, right? We have people we compare our skills to, because we all compare ourselves to somebody. And unfortunately for some of us, we compare ourselves to people who are unreasonably good at what they do, if you consider the time that has been invested. And to give you a concrete example, I used to teach people Swedish and English as just a pro bono volunteer work, right? And what I used to tell my students, because all of them have the same problem for the most part, they had anxieties for speaking Swedish. And I told them, when you talk to me, you're talking to a native speaker, and they go, yeah, but you're so good and I'm not so good. And I said, hey, just relax. Of course I'm good. I've been speaking, this is my main language. I've been speaking this language my entire life. Of course I'm gonna be better. But it's not about it's not about you who has been literally doing this for like a year maybe, some of them even shorter amount of time than that. It's completely unreasonable that you will in that time ever be as good at Swedish as I am. But that's not the goal. It's not about you beating me. It's not about you being as good as me. It is about you being able to communicate, to be able to express yourself and have a conversation in Swedish. Because you can't expect, like, it's, as I said, it's unreasonable for you to think that you're going to be as good as me at this language in that short amount of time. And I think most people do this. Like, we do compare ourselves in that way. And I did for sure. So, anxiety number 2, fighting the idea that, here I am just starting out, and I look at my boss and my colleagues who have been doing this for 10, some of them even more years. And they're so goddamn good. So good at what they do. And I try to learn, I try to go to lunch with them as much as possible because I really want this. I really want to get good. And finally, I start to figure out a few more things. I start to figure out, okay, maybe there's more to this programming thing than just making things work. Maybe I have some patterns here, and I start accumulating, slowly but surely, a little bit of experience. And until finally one day, I sit down, and this is probably one of the proudest moments I have ever had, well, one of them at least, in terms of my career. My colleague and virtually say, let's call him soulmate, and for all intents and purposes, let's call him Alan. We sit down one day, we have a discussion and a problem, and I explained to him the way that we're pair coding basically, and I explained the way that I'm thinking about this problem, and he kind of goes like, you know what, Fredrik, that's actually a really good suggestion. And he continues by saying, I'm flattered, and I kind of go, well, you're flattering me, my friend. I'm actually not that good at this. And he kind of goes, no, actually you are, Fredrik. You're pretty good at this. I mean, you have a lot of ideas, great ideas. And I mean, it's like I'm learning things from you, and I kind of like, what are you saying? I said, well, I'm very happy that we are colleagues. In essence, I'm learning a lot from you. And that just completely took me by surprise. Because you have to remember, at this point in time, I had been dedicating most of my life to getting really good at programming, trying my best to be as good as humanly possible. And I mean, I studied so much and so hard, but I still only had 2 or 3, 2 years maybe, 2 years of experience. And here is my colleague who is, he's taught me so much, but he has almost 15 years of work experience, professional level programming experience. And he's telling me that I helped him understand something, like that I can provide value to him. And I kind of realized that, hey, I am actually every day now writing code that he is allowing into the code base, to the project. He is okay with the way that I write code. And then I finally understood that I had actually achieved the thing that I set out so many years ago to achieve. And that this idea that I had, that it was all about talent, it wasn't true. And today, I'm at a company where I'm actually, believe it or not, considered to be one of my colleagues, the new colleagues. They're coming to me for help. Most of them have been doing it programming for as long as me, and some of them even more. And they come to me and to look to me like I'm some type of expert. I don't feel like an expert, not at all. But somehow, over all this time, and through just hard work, I arrived at the point I arrived at this place in my career where I actually am doing exactly what I wanted to do, and it kind of just, it kind of just happened. So what I'm trying to tell you is that maybe you should just start, because talent will get, like, sure, talent is great. If you have talent for something, that is great, but talent isn't the most important part. Hard work will get you pretty far, and trust me, I can firsthand tell you that it's actually pretty great to simply, like, to wake up one day and realize that, hey, maybe it wasn't so hard after all. Maybe it wasn't as silly as I thought it would be. Yeah, food for thought.